We're talking about air rights. Now, air rights is how Mr. Trump made his money. And they also apply in the UK. It goes back to the Property Act 1925, where everything to the sky is owned by the property owner. We're not going to discuss the 1925 Property Act, but air rights are simply where you're able to build on top of an existing building. So let's have a look. This is the question we usually get asked. I bought a project. It's normally a flat development on top of a building. Do I need a party wall agreement? Let me make sure I see all of it. Do I need a party wall agreement with the flat below, the freeholder of my building, and the neighbors? So let's have a look at the issues involved. So the issues involved are, within your building, you'll need to get freeholders' consent. You'll also need to get scaffolding license, and sometimes, and this is a little bit loose here, but people feel that you need a party wall agreement with your freeholder. Actually, you don't, because if you can wrap 3 of these issues up into the party wall consent, that means all 3 are dealt with. So if you think about it, if you get your freeholders' consent to build your flat on top of your building, you can wrap up scaffolding licenses within that. So they'll give you a scaffolding license. You'll also ask them to consent under the Party Wal Act, because you can't have the situation where they're consenting on one hand as a freeholder and creating a dispute under the Party Wal Act, which is what you have to do to get a Party Wal award. So, and a number of times I've spoken to solicitors and said, look, you need to wrap all 3 up within the freeholder's consent. Very important to do that, because occasionally you'll get freeholders saying, no, I'm going to give you consent, but I want a party wall agreement. And if they really persist with that, sometimes it's easier to do the party wall agreement. But ideally, you want to wrap these 3 up all in one go and negotiate it as part of your freeholder's consent. So that's a tip that can save you money and time and effort. So bear that in mind. Now, the 4th issue that comes about is party wall issues with adjoining owners. I'm going to discuss this at length a little bit, and hopefully I can cast some light. It's actually a very interesting subject. So let's have a look at a scenario 1. Now, let's pretend this flat's next door. This is a house, or it could be flats. There could be flat downstairs, flat upstairs. Again, next door flats or houses, doesn't matter. Now, the important point to note here is the works on this type of scheme are notifiable under Section 2.3, and the one issue to remember is Section 11.11, enclosure costs. I'll explain that as we go through. So let's assume this is the airspace we bought. This is our proposed project, and we're going to build a flat here. Now, because there's nothing next to us in the roof space, this is the adjoining owner of the building next door. Now, it could be that you've got a freeholder. These could be flats or a house. Either way, if you've got nothing in the roof space, no flat in the roof space next to you, there's only one notifiable owner there, and that's the freeholder. So let's have a look at a slightly different scenario, which is where we've got, again, this project will be notifiable under Section 2/3, and we're going to look at Section 11 issues as well. So that's our project here. Now, that's what we're going to propose to build our flat. And if we have a look carefully on the right-hand side here, we've got a building, again, could be flats and so on, but because there's no leaseholder next to us, it's only the freeholder that's notifiable on this side. On the other side, you've got a block of flats, for example. So although you don't have walls spanning across it, it's just a way of showing the differences in flats. So you've got Mr. Green, Mr. and Mrs. Green here, Mr. and Mrs. Blue here, and Mr. Red here. So they're all separate flat owners. Notifiable adjoining owners here, you've got the freeholder outlined by the red, and you've also got the leaseholder here that's notifiable. So in this scenario, you've got the freeholder here, the leaseholder here, and the freeholder on the other side. So in this scenario, we've got 3 adjoining owners. Okay, let's have a look at this scenario now. This isn't an exact illustration. Usually you have what we call a manside roof here. And this is where section 1111 enclosure cost becomes really, really in play. So usually you'd have actually a wall here separating rather than a stud partition, and probably a wall here. Let's take this scenario. So, and this is the project you bought, this is your proposed project. So basically you'll see it in town sometimes. You have flats rising up, there's, flank party walls rising up, flat on the right hand side, flat on the left hand side, and just a project in the middle waiting to be converted. So in this scenario, you'll have the freeholders on the left hand side as notifiable. You'll also have the leasehold owners there. On the right hand side, you'll have the leasehold owners of the flat next door notifiable. And there's also leasehold owners as specified by the yellow box, and freehold owners on the right hand side. Again, both of those, you've got 4 owners in this scenario notifiable. And this is where section 1111 will come into play. So if we've got a case where the wall's already existing and you're not having to build a new wall, if that's been built by or raised by the owners next door, because you're going to make use of it, it's only fair that you make a contribution towards the cost of that wall. So I'm going to explain section 1111 costs in a minute and how it operates. It can apply to both flats where you're enclosing or making use of, where you're making use of a raised party wall, or it can apply at a ground level where you're using a flank wall of an extension and making use of that. So again, the Act is written in sections rather than projects, so that's why we have to translate this across. So those are the basic 3 scenarios, and you will get a hybrid of these going along, but these 3 cover it. So